สวัสดีครับ I'm Point from ค้นพบ Today I want to talk about the importance of paying attention and observing your own mental conversations, the mental dialogue that happens in your own mind. In other words, what are you really saying? What do you truly say to yourself? How do you truly think about something, about someone, about yourself? What are you trying to say? What do you feel? In other words, the mental commentary. Because these things, whether we realize it or not, they form a narrative. A narrative which leads you to perceive the world a certain way, to perceive a situation a certain way, to perceive somebody a certain way. And that builds the relationship that you have with the external world and how you therefore navigate it. In other words, it forms your attitude. And attitude is everything if you want to solve a problem or a situation effectively. Your attitude must therefore be in harmony with what you want to achieve. In your attitude is your belief systems about that person that you're in conflict with, about that situation at work, etc. And these mental conversations, these mental dialogues, these mental commentaries form the basis of these attitudes, these belief systems. So you can begin to see the importance of addressing this and of understanding how this works and of paying attention to see what you are truly saying to yourself. Because we always talk, the mind is always talking 24/7, never stops. It doesn't stop when you're sitting alone, when you're traveling to work, when you're driving your car, when you're having dinner, when you're taking a shower. Every single moment of the day, the mind is always going on this mental chatter. Now, to begin here, I want to mention and thank Neville Goddard for his work. Neville Goddard did such an amazing job, I think, in shedding light to this issue and the mechanics of how this works. Neville Goddard was a teacher and an author, and his works primarily focused on bringing and expressing the psychological truths which were intended in biblical teachings. Now, the key from his work that I want to pull for today's video is about inner conversations. In a nutshell, what you inwardly say and what you inwardly do is far more important than what you outwardly say and what you outwardly do and what you outwardly express. In other words, what you truly say to yourself, how you truly think and how you truly feel is really important. We must be aware of this. In other words, how can we better be aware of the state of mind that we are in? The state of mind or the narrative or the mental dialogue that we like to dwell in, that we like to repeat over and over and over again in ourselves until it becomes a habit that is quite hard to break. Now, if that habit is positive and constructive, good, but oftentimes it may not be the case. The reason why we are not aware of this mental chatter is because we're too busy distracting ourselves. We're too busy being lost in a train of thoughts to follow these thinking chains, these thinking and thought habits and thought patterns. And we're too busy distracting ourselves with other things, too busy projecting outwards, too busy blaming others, or too busy blaming ourselves. That's why we find it difficult to pay attention to see what we're truly saying, what the true voice that's deep inside, what it's really trying to say. And therefore, to discover this, you must watch yourself objectively. You must be silent enough to truly listen and be honest with what you're saying, what you're feeling, and what you're thinking. And oftentimes, we will realize that most of these dialogues that we have, say somebody that you have a problem with in work, your colleague that you might not like, or a family relationship that you're in conflict with, or any other thing, right? You will realize that oftentimes these dialogues, these mental commentaries are rather negative. They are unpleasant. And we're too busy rationalizing our own behaviors rather than self-observing what's really going on here. So to better see this issue, let me borrow an excerpt from one of Neville Goddard's teachings, which I found really, really insightful, and I want to share in today's video. Now, this was taken from a lecture called The Three Propositions, which the lecture he gave, Neville Goddard gave this in 1954, so all the way back in the 1950s. So here's the key. Now, if I sincerely desire to change my world, there is no one in my world I need change but myself. So that I don't need to change you as an individual, but I need to change my attitude towards you. If you dislike me, or if I think you dislike me, or if your behavior offends me, the cause of my offense is not you and your behavior, but I must look for that cause within myself. Now, if I seriously and I am honest about my search, I will find it. And I will find that inwardly, when I think of you, it is never a pleasant conversation that I carry on with you. I think that is really, really insightful because it explains the psychology of how we relate to external conflicts or somebody who we may not like, etc. It really explains that well. We tend to think that the cause of our offense is due to some external situation that happened or due to some other person's behavior, even if they have wronged us greatly. But a higher level of truth here that Neville Goddard is trying to show in these teachings is that if you are really going to be honest and self-reflect objectively, you will realize that it is your narrative that causes the offense. It is your attitude, the mental conversations, the inner conversations that you have that causes you to have offense, that causes you to feel offended, that causes you to suffer in a sense. And that forms your attitude, and that forms your behaviors from which you will approach the problem, right? And that is really, really insightful because it shows that to truly change, we must begin by changing ourselves first, by addressing and resolving this deep negative dialogue that we have, the negative outlook, the unpleasant conversations that we have about that situation that is bothering us, about that person who is trying to take advantage of us in work, about that relationship issue, etc. Right? So to better get the picture, let's use the help of an example. This is one that I see a lot and I think that a lot of us can relate to. Now, I've seen people who, having gone through heartbreak, say they just ended a relationship, etc., and they may think to themselves, in a way that they try to cheer themselves up, and they may say to yourself, oh, yeah, it's much better being single, right? I mean, being in a relationship is great, I'm happy, but being single is way better, it's more liberating. So that is the outer level, right? That's the outer surface level of what you're really saying. But to be true to yourself, to really understand what's going on deeper, you have to be silent enough and self-observe objectively and honestly to see what you're really saying. Perhaps you realize that what you're really saying or what you're really trying to say is that, yes, I just got out of a relationship and it hurts. I am hurt. And in a sense, I feel distrust and I feel pessimism towards my ability to get new future healthy relationships, and I am therefore afraid of entering into new relationships, and therefore I also am afraid of the dating life again, so to say. So you see how on a deeper level these are the mental conversations that play out, and then what happens? They form your attitude. Your attitude is now negative towards your chances towards attracting a romantic partner, or your attitude is now negative towards the chances of having success in your love life. Now, the irony of the whole situation is you're not aware of this because on a surface level, you deceive yourself with your outer speech that, yeah, I'm happier now, it's better to be single, I don't get hurt, and it's much more liberating to be single. That's the outer level. But on the inner level, you have not resolved that hurt. You have not come to terms with it yet. And in a sense, you're running away from it. And that forms your attitude, which is negative towards your outlook towards relationships. And don't you think that's going to control your future behaviors? Psychologically speaking, that sets you up to fail the next time you encounter a chance with somebody that may be a good romantic partner. Because what? Because you come off from a place of either distrust and or neediness. And that goes against the concept of psychological attraction, right? So you see how these deeper levels of thoughts, these mental commentaries that you have, they first of all, they form your attitude, they form your belief systems, and that gets expressed in some sort of worldview and therefore your behavior. Here's another example. Let's say you have a problem with a colleague at work. Let's say that colleague is trying to manipulate you, is a toxic colleague, and is trying to demonize you in work, is trying to take credit for your work, or whatever, you name it, right? What are you saying outwardly? Perhaps you're trying to keep calm or try to pretend that nothing is happening, to keep the peace, to not upset that manipulative colleague, right? But what are you really saying on a deeper level? Maybe you're feeling angry, you're feeling upset with that colleague that is manipulating you or that is doing you wrong. You find offense, and deep down, you just feel angry towards him, which is completely normal. You feel angry, you want to say to yourself, I hate this guy, Bob. I wish he fails. I wish everybody in the organization sees how much of a manipulative asshole he is. I wish this behavior would come to surface, and I hope he gets demoted. Maybe that is what's going on a deeper level. How does that form your attitude? You begin to see Bob in such a negative light. And through that, you have to demonize Bob, right? When you go on the road of demonizing Bob, how do you think you're going to be able to solve this problem wisely and constructively? Because to solve a problem truly requires and implies in itself some form of peace, acceptance, and resolution, correct? That's why we call it a solution. Therefore, what you want to achieve must be in harmony with the attitude that you are holding, with the belief systems that you are holding. Now imagine if on the surface level, you tell yourself that you want to solve the conflict with this coworker that for some reason hates your face and wants to manipulate you and wants to steal credit for your work. Let's say. That's the surface level. But on a deeper level, your attitude comes from a place where you're now holding on to offense, as I just said from the excerpt in 1954 on the 3 propositions from Neville Goddard. Right? So your attitude is still holding on to some form of offense. You feel that you have been wronged by Bob, and your mental conversations goes on a loop about that again and again and again. How could that asshole do this to me? Why am I put in this situation? I'm so miserable at work. It goes on a loop, a loop, a loop, a loop. That forms your attitude. And your attitude, which is coming from a place of hurt, distrust, or feeling that you have been wronged, which rightfully you have been wronged, but you see how your attitude is not in harmony with the solution that you want to achieve. So logically speaking, how can you become effective in addressing the conflict at work, in addressing the conflict from a previous heartbreak, or etc., or anything? Here's another example that I see. Oftentimes in family members, it is completely normal to have conflicts, right? Sometimes one family member trespasses your personal space, your privacy, etc. Or maybe they are annoying to you, right? And you start to have this attitude that that they are a bother to you. They are bothersome to you. They are an obligation to you. They are an obstacle for you. They are a problem for you. But on a surface level, you deceive yourself because you feel, well, you know what? I don't like what my dad is doing. I don't like what my brother is doing, but they're family. So I guess I'll try to pretend like nothing's happening and okay, fine, I'll deal with it. The problem will solve itself. I'll deal with it, right? It's not a big issue. It's not a big deal, right? You delude yourself, you deceive yourself from seeing what you're truly feeling on a deeper level. Now, without realizing it, what's going on with your inner conversations, with the mental commentary, with the attitudes? Oh, how can my brother do this to me again? How can my brother be so inconsiderate? Why is my brother always, disrespecting me? Why is my brother using words to put me down, to invade my personal space, to always be so nosy with everything I do? I just feel like this is just so bad. I have been wronged here. This is the deeper level, perhaps, that you may not realize. then it forms your attitude. Everything your brother then does, even if he does a good thing, you will come from a place of negative attitude towards him. You have already demonized him before you have a chance to solve the conflict constructively. By changing yourself and your attitude, and by changing your mental commentary, right? How do you think you can solve the problem if you come from a place where you are each other's enemy? If you come from a negative attitude, right? Because to solve a problem, again, it already implies some sense of resolution, some sense of peace and mutual understanding. You will not arrive to that place. You will not arrive to that place where you can solve problems effectively if you're still holding on to some form of negative attitude of offense or of hurt, as mentioned in the text. So you see where I'm going here. The mental commentary and the attitude, it really controls our behaviors in really, really fundamental ways that we may not be aware of. Now the key thing is this. It is one thing to know about this mechanism, but it is completely another thing to actually take action and do something about it. We will realize that these thinking habits, these mental conversations, they become a habit if we are able to self-honestly reflect and objectively look inwards. We will realize that in a sense, we have this secret love relationship with negative thinking. We love to criticize the other person. We love to criticize the situation. We love to demonize the situation. But yet, that forms our very attitude. Yet, we think that to solve the problem, we need to change our mood, which can help. But changing a mood that still does nothing to address the underlying attitude, the underlying conversations that you have about the issue or about the topic. So changing moods can help you get the strength to address the problem, but in and of itself, it has not addressed the root of the issue at all. So to actually know what to do is not good enough. To actually understand the mechanisms at play here is not good enough. The answer lies in practice. We have to be aware of the mental conversations that we have with ourselves, the attitudes that we form, the narrative that we have towards the other person. And we have to summon the strength and the attention to break the chain from that. Can you ask yourself that instead of having this negative conversation with the other person, can you imagine what it would be like to have a positive conversation with the other person, to have a positive outlook towards the other person first, towards yourself, so that you're better able to be more constructive and be creative in finding a solution that is based on peace and mutual understanding, that is based on wisdom, right? So you have to find a way to break this chain. You have to resolve these negative mental commentaries when you catch them. Don't think to yourself that you can just distract yourself to do something else, to take your mind off it. Because yes, that may give you a release from stress temporarily, which is important, I will say, but it still doesn't resolve the root of the problem. Because again, outer speech and outer expression is very deceptive. It does not show what you're truly thinking and feeling deep inside, which in order to change a situation, in order to solve a problem, we have to begin by looking inwards and reframing that negative conversation or that negative attitude towards something more positive. Because only then can we be in harmony, can our attitude and our belief systems be in harmony with that which we want to achieve. And only then will we stand a chance to find a real, long-lasting, sustainable solution to a problem. Again, I know this is incredibly hard to do because it's one thing to understand this, and I am also very much learning about this myself. I very much consider myself a student of these principles because they are really hard to embody, but practice makes perfect. Try to observe yourself when you're silent, when you're at peace before you go to bed, for example, right? Try to observe the mental commentary and the direction of that mental commentary. Say with the annoying family member that you have to deal with, or with the with how you view having come out of a heartbreak or having ended a relationship, or how you view that other colleague at work that is trying to stab you in the back, etc. Pay attention to these conversations that you have. Pay attention to the attitude that you're building for yourself. And break the chain. Don't feed into it. I know it's really addictive to feed into that criticism, that negative tone, that projection, that blaming. It's really addictive. It's really addictive to be stuck in the unpleasant tone of the conversation, because in a sense, it gives us some false sense of justice. It gives us some false sense of justification. That's why it's addictive. But you must summon the attention and the awareness and the courage to break the chain and resolve these mental commentaries whenever they pop up. Because if you carry them with you, they grow and they balloon and they manifest even more. So that's the key insight in this video. Again, I know this is hard and I'm still learning this very much myself. It is difficult. But you will be surprised of how wonderful it is if you start to develop a more positive commentary. If you change the direction of that conversation that you have in your mind towards that issue that you're facing, towards that problem that you're dealing with, towards that person that you're in conflict with, if you're able to change it from negative to a positive, you will begin to see how lovely it is for, number one, the sake of your own peace and happiness, and number two, in terms of your optimism about how to deal with the problem effectively and solve it. That's the key of this work. It's very counterintuitive, but that's how this whole game works. So that's it for now. I wanted to share this in today's video, that the key is, again, pay attention to the mental commentary, the mental dialogue, the inner conversations that you have with yourself. Because these things form your attitude towards the situation that you're dealing with, or towards the person that you're dealing with, and from that forms your behaviors. And in order to be effective in any domain of life, what you want on the surface level must be in harmony with what is at a deeper level within you. What is your attitude? What is your belief towards a situation? What is your viewpoint towards a situation? They must be in harmony. Otherwise, you will not be as effective as you can be in problem solving, and you will end up creating more suffering and pain for yourself rather than peace and problem solving and resolutions. That's it for now. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave in the comments what you think about this video, what you found most insightful about this video. If you like the video, please leave a like for me. Please share the video for me. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube, and hit the bell notification button for more videos. Or if you're watching on Facebook, please like my Facebook page for me. That's it for now. Good luck to you. Do be patient with this work. In the initial phase, it will be quite uncomfortable because you will realize that nobody is to blame but yourself. Nobody else is to blame but your own mental commentary. But again, once you realize that in a non-judgmental way, you can evolve past it. And that's where real problem solving and wisdom takes place. That's how you solve the problem wisely, and that's how you become more effective in all domains of your life. So good luck to you. Thanks for watching. Good luck on your practice. I'll see you next time. สวัสดีครับ